Welcome to In It to Win It. This is Steve Barton, and thank you for tuning in. We're here at the 2026 Rural Symposium in Boca Raton, here with Bob Quartermain of Dakota Gold. Bob, thank you for coming back on the show.
Steve, great to be here.
Great to have you. Great to have you. Okay, I like to start all these out as just kind of give us an idea of the size of the company. Ballpark, what is your market cap, cash, and debt?
Correct. Our market cap is around $600 million US. As of our March 31st financial statements, we had $107 million in cash. We have no debt. So we're fully funded for what we believe will be the next 3 years we need in order to get shovel ready for the Richmond Hill project and bringing it into production.
Okay. You've been doing this a long time. You came out of retirement for this, right? So
Right.
you didn't need to do this, but you found a project that was worthy of doing it again. Give us your backstory and how you got started, what projects you've been a part of, and how that led to Dakota Gold.
Great. Well, I grew up in small town Canada in New Brunswick. I did my undergrad in geology and then went on and did my master's in mineral exploration. So I love exploration. I've been doing this for, as you say, 50 years now. I started in 1976 and have worked all over the world in that regard. But two things that certainly helped into my career is when I came out of school, if I was going to do exploration, I wanted to know what a mine looked like. So I went to work for a company called Teck Corporation, which is one of Canada's largest multinational corporations. And they sent me to Lamaque, which was a gold mine at that time. So I was working at 6,000 feet below surface at the Lamaque gold mine. And after that, they sent me to the David Bell mine at Hemlo, where we drilled it off and developed it. So I was there for the start of that mine when it opened back in 1985. And of course, I'm back involved at Hemlo now here some 41 years later. So it was the work that I did there that allowed me to go on to Vancouver, and I started working at Silver Standard in 1985. And we started focusing on silver, and it was through a relationship that I developed with Rick Rule. Of course, we're here at his conference. And Rick funded Silver Standard in 1993. We did a 3 million units at 78 cents. We raised $2 million. And we went off and acquired silver projects. So the company had a market cap of around 5 million at the time, I think. And ultimately, the share price went with the rise in silver price up to around $40. And we created a company with about a $2.5 billion valuation. And I retired from Silver Standard in 2010. And then Silver Standard decided to sell a project. We had Bruce Jack, which was the Bruce Jack gold mine. Yeah. And I decided to buy that. So I put a team together and we went out and raised $283 million. We bought the project. We put it into production in 7 years. We spent over $1 billion doing that. And in 2020, 2021, that mine was taken over by first Newcrest and then now Newmont for $3.6 billion. So again, it's all about making shareholders money, and as you say, was happily retired. And because I'm an exploration geologist and we have in our business, the best place to look for a mine is in the head frames of other mines. So John Odd, who was a business associate, said we should look at the Homestake District. You know, there's been no exploration done there since 1996. And so we looked at it. The Homestake mine had been shut down. It was owned by Barrick. They were looking to sell the assets. And we went down and acquired the Maitland property from Barrick and also Richmond Hill. We listed Dakota Gold on the New York Stock Exchange. And over the last number of years, 3 years now, we've been drilling off Richmond Hill as an option. And we've come out with a very attractive resource and IA with cash flow, which shows that we can, move this along a trajectory to put it in production. So I've had the ability to work in this industry from grassroots exploration all the way through to mine development, and now we've got the whole Homestake District acquired. We have over 28,000 acres in the district, and so we're very keen on developing Richmond Hill, and then we can use cash flow from it to fund all of the other opportunities that we see at Maitland and elsewhere. So it's exciting as an exploration geologist to be back in a mining camp with this kind of gold price.
Yeah. Okay, so started off at Teck, went to Lamaque. You built Silver Standard,
right.
Took it from 78 cents to $40.
Correct.
That's a fun run.
It was, yeah. And many of the shareholders who were there are here today. They're now shareholders in Dakota Gold.
Because, that is awesome.
Right, because they made money in Silver Standard, they made money at Pretium, and are here to understand that I like finding exploration projects, and be able to move them forward along that development curve.
Yeah. Okay. And then Pretium, was that Bruce Jack or?
I was Bruce Jack, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then you met John Odd.
Yeah, we knew each other, and he showed the opportunity here in the Homestake District, and he worked together with myself at Dakota Gold. He's gone off to do Hemlo, and I'm still here involved with this project because I like the opportunities ahead of us.
Okay. Okay. So this would be your third run, I would say.
Yeah, Silver Standard, Pretium, Dakota Gold, and a little bit of Hemlo.
Okay. All right. So 4, 3.5.
Yeah, 3.5. Yes.
Okay. That's a good track record. Okay. Give us a share structure, break down the pie chart. Who owns it? How much do you own?
Right. So on Dakota Gold, we have about 130 million shares outstanding. I'm the largest shareholder. I've got about 8 million shares, about 6% of the company. And then we have a large group of institutions. Now, we as a management team own about 10% of the company between myself, my co-chair, major officers in the company. And then just a good distribution between Orion Mine Finance is a shareholder. You've got BlackRock, you've got Franklin, Templeton. So there's a wide institutional shareholder base for about 30%, and then about 55% of the company is held by retail or maybe non-disclosed. Europe Pacific is here. They're certainly shareholders of ours. I've known Adrian Day for a long time. So a good balance between institutions to see the long-term opportunity, and then of course the classic retail shareholders we have here that I've been able to have invest with me for much of my career.
Okay. So about you own 6%.
Yes.
Management itself owns
About
1 out of
10,
10
yeah.
shares.
Yeah.
And about half the float is available to retail.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. All right. And size of the prize. How big is it?
Right.
What are you looking for? Give us what the last study. How big is the?
So we have two projects that we're working on. One is the Richmond Hill, which is an option we have from Barrick, and there we completed a resource estimate in 2025, and we've been doing tens of thousands of meters of drilling since then. So we'll do a resource update, but based off of that resource, this time last year at the Rural Conference, we put out an IA with cash flow. So that IA with cash flow showed that we have a resource of about 2.6 million ounces in the measured and indicated category, grading about 0.56 of a gram or 0.017 ounces of gold per ton. And that gives us about a 17-year mine life, producing around 153,000 ounces of gold per year. When we did our financial analysis, we did a $2,350 gold price as our base case, and that gave the project about a $1.6 billion net present value. So if you now were to look at a $4,000 gold price, of course, that gets closer to $3 billion based on our disclosure. So a really attractive project in this gold environment. And we showed that there's also a larger inferred component. So we've been doing infill drilling this year. We will do a new resource associated with a pre-feasibility study that we're going to complete in the fourth quarter. And that will then really help us to frame out what this mine is going to look like. The SK 1300 is similar to a PEA study, so preliminary economic study. But we've shown that it sits at surface, very low strip, less than 1-to-1. And the key thing is we're 2 miles north of the Wharf mine, which is operated by Core. They produce about 100,000 ounces a year and have for the last 40 years. And of course, the Homestake District has produced over 40 million ounces over a 125-year period, so it's great. We're also on private land, and that certainly helps it as we look to the development cadence that we want to have advancing the project forward. And unlike Bruce Jack, which was in the northern mountains in northern British Columbia, we're in an old mining district at Lead with an actual mine operating, so we have all the infrastructure there.
Yeah.
We have a power line to the project, there's roads to the project, there's a couple 100,000 people who live within a 1-hour drive of the project, so it's an excellent property from the fact on private land in the state of South Dakota that produces gold. So there's a real known process that you go through with the regulators in order to get your permits done. And so I say with the studies we've done with our pre-feasibility, feasibility next year, starting the permitting process, we hope to do that over 18 months, construction. So we're targeting 2029 to be in production, which is pretty attractive for many of the companies here where people can see we're financed
Yeah.
and we've got a timeline to production.
Huh. Okay. All right. So end of 29?
Right in 29, correct, yes.
Okay. All right. What is the biggest unanswered question facing Dakota today?
Biggest unanswered question, I'd say it was just being able to continue with the timelines we've put up for the milestones that we want to make going forward, right? So we've done the drilling work. We know that there's gold mineralization there. We're doing our metallurgical work now, which is going to help inform our pre-feasibility study. Because we're only 2 miles from an existing mine with similar geology, we know that technically it works.
Yeah.
And you can also make good estimates with respect to what are your operating costs going to be, what will your capital costs going to be. And so, the reason you mentioned I came out of retirement, because you want to make sure all those boxes are checked. You basically want to come in and be able to advance this forward into production, which is what I've done before. And so those are the things that were critical for me: location, private land, existing mining jurisdiction, individuals who are friendly to mining. And of course, we have 40 employees working for us in Leeds, South Dakota. So they all work with their neighbors here.
Yeah.
And so I'm involved in because of the positive things we see going forward, and have tried to, take any negative concerns away by those aspects: private land, infrastructure, which are often the risks that you have in other processes and other projects.
Yeah. I guess my point in bringing that up was that it probably had to be pretty good for you to want to take it on.
Correct. Yeah. It wouldn't be necessary, but because you see the opportunity and you've created value here for other shareholders, and I'm excited because we have a full district. So we're talking about Richmond Hill. Next door at the Maitland project, it's an underground high-grade opportunity similar to the old Homestake mine. Produced 40 million ounces, averaged around 8 grams or a quarter of an ounce. So we put in a number
8 grams a ton?
8 grams of gold per ton, so about a quarter ounce was the mining underground in the Homestake mine.
Okay.
So we've put in we've had 47 intersections in the banded iron formation at Maitland, and they average around 11 grams of gold, so about a third of an ounce over 4 meters or 12 feet. The west ledges in the old mine produced 6 million ounces at 11 grams, right? So therefore, once we get Richmond Hill up and running and producing gold, we can utilize cash flow, go 2 miles next door to our Maitland project and start drilling it and looking at another mine there with a different mineralization type. So that's what excites me, is that we have a district with a few opportunities where we can all do within the footprint of the claims that we own and the mineral rights that we have in the Homestake District.
Okay. What could go wrong?
Well, the gold price could come down, and it makes your access to capital, which is why we funded with the gold price up. So we've got funding to be able to see us through the next years. A change, I'd say it would be a change in sentiment, but again, to your point, you try and look to make sure things don't go wrong. This is a 6th mine that I'll be involved in building from discovery to production.
Yeah.
The Hemlo mine being one. Worked at the Tarco mine in Africa, worked at the Manantial Espejo in Argentina. We put the Perquitas mine in production. The Brucejack mine had a variable high grade, and we built it up in the mountains of northern British Columbia, 1,000, and it's produced over, I think, 2.5 million ounces to date. So I focus on the opportunities that we know we can go through and develop.
Yeah.
And in this case, we've kind of checked all those boxes. Location, permitting opportunities. The price is good. I think long-term gold is going to continue to do well. And so we're focusing on those outcomes. And to your point that we've tried to look through what are the opportunities or the issues that we might face, and we've kind of looked at those all. We've got Jack Henris, who is our president and COO. He's come from operating gold mines for Barrick and Newmont. He also came out of retirement to take this on. So I think that's your biggest positive aspect. You've got 2 people coming to retirement to be involved in a project.
Yeah.
We've kind of done that for shareholders. What are the issues we may see? We see the positive outcome, and that's what we're focusing on.
Okay. One thing I've learned from Rick is that the number one, and Doug Casey as well,
Yes.
is that the number one thing in any of these companies is the people behind it.
Right.
And if you've been doing this for 50 years and it brought you out of retirement.
Right, and Jack himself, who lived there and came out, and he's built mines before. So what we have is, a geologist like myself who understands the capital markets and the geology, but Jack, who's built these mines before, to be able to come out, and that's why it's so important to have he and the team together. He's brought a great team together that have built it before, and the team wouldn't come to work if they wouldn't see, well, here's an outcome. This is a mine we can build, so now we'll go through that process. So I'm quite excited about it to be, I say, the sixth mine that I'll be involved with in my career. Many people have it once, but to have it that many times mean that you have the experience of previous mines, like working at a heap leach in Africa and Ghana with respect to goldfields in the Tarka mine. So if you see issues we came to there, those are the things you can bring here and say what we can do to constantly refine it. And that's what Jack does as an operator of heap leach mines in Nevada and elsewhere. So I'm excited, particularly with this gold price environment. When I started in 1976, gold was $130 an ounce, right? And so to be here at this point in your career, with all the positive aspects of gold, with central banks buying it, just a great timing position for us.
Yeah. I think we're at a kind of a real sweet spot right now where gold has come down and the miners have come down even more.
Correct.
And it's kind of a neat little timing window.
Right.
And anyways.
And the thing that I've noticed, in my career, you go 25 years ago when gold was again trading a couple $100 an ounce, miners weren't able to generate cash flow. And what's happened in this cycle over the last few years is miners have the discipline now, right? They're making sure they're keeping their costs down, they're generating cash flow, and they're giving that back to shareholders. Mining companies are now dividending, assets to shareholders. They're doing share buybacks. So insofar as you say that, yes, the price points come off of 5,000, but if we go 3 years ago, gold was, stripping down at 2,000. And so it's had a great run up, as have silver. The share prices are all up, but more importantly, they're all generating lots of free cash.
Yeah.
And that cash is being reinvested in exploration. They're investing in junior mining companies. We're seeing merger and activity occurring. So it is really a good time, as you say, for investors to be looking at this space because of the opportunity that the thesis for gold is still very strong.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. If our viewers want to get a hold of you and follow Dakota Gold, how can they do so?
They can go to our website, which is www.dakotagoldcorp.com. You can contact myself, Bob Quartermain, or you can contact Carling Gaze, who is our VP of IR, or you can send your details to us at info@dakotagoldcorp.com, and we'll get back to you. Or for those of you who may be here, come visit our booth.
Awesome. Right on.
Great.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Steve.
much, Bob.
Appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. We're going to go a little bit deeper with premium subscribers. I want to get some old school stories with you and Rick.
Right. Great.
Okay.
Look forward to that.
Yes. Okay, if you would like to get the replays of the 2026 Rural Symposium, there's a link for that down below. And you can also watch the second episode with Bob and I with the link down below. Thank you very much for tuning in. You have a wonderful rest of your day and happy trading. For more content like this, check out these videos right here.